morning. I'm glad everybody's here. Okay. So, question number one. It's really throwing you off. You've thrown off the Emperor's Groove. Sorry. Okay, question number one. Approximately within 50 years, either way, when was Rome founded? If you don't have a piece of paper for this is going to be a problem. I'm putting this in the chat too.
We're allowed to Google it.
No, I want to know what's in your head.
I know a book where I can find it.
Of course, that's great. So you already know how to learn stuff. I just want to know if you have already learned this. So no, you may not.
Mostly neurons.
The wise men may not assist you. Where's Evan? No Evan? Don't put it in the chat. We'll do that later when we go back through the when we go back through the quiz. Question number two.
Thanks, Isaac.
Who founded Rome? There's more than one correct answer to this.
I know.
I'm very glad to hear that. Who founded Rome? Question number three. Let's see. What was I going to ask for three? Oh, question number three. What was the original form of government in Rome? That is a trick question. It doesn't work very well if I tell you that. It's not much of a trick. I'm not very good at tricking people. So, sorry. Kind of not my job as a teacher to trick you. Okay, so let's see. Who founded Rome? What was the original form of government in Rome? Number four. What was the final form of government in Rome? That is also a trick question. That is one fat cat. Holy mackerel, it's not a cat, it's a panther. Sheesh.
She's just fluffy.
Oh,
Lots of
that
fun.
what that
Have
is.
one just like it. He's this later. Out in the house.
I have a cat. We don't talk.
Do you have to shave them every year?
If you did, you could like make clothing out of it. Okay. Seriously, come on. You could shear that cat and spin multiple shirts worth of wool. Okay. That'd be weird though. I don't think I've ever met anybody wearing a cat hair shirt. But hey, first time for everything. Okay. Number five. Question number five. Okay. Let's see. Oh, language. What language did they speak in Rome? Thank you, Mary. That's very enlightening. Question number six. Six. Okay. Approximately when Approximately is 2 P's. Approximately when did Rome fall? Multiple answers to that question will be accepted as well. Question number 7. So hurry up with 6 here. Question number 7. Question number 7. Number 7. Number 7. Number 7.
How many of these questions are there?
I don't know. It depends on how long I go before I get tired. I got a lot. I have like 40. I just have to choose the right ones. We will not do 40. There will not be 40. Question number 7. What does the Roman inscription SPQR stand for? That one's a hard one. That's
You're just speaking out everyone who's read the Percy Jackson series, and then everyone else fails the class as to how this works.
Oh, really? I didn't know we got to that. But okay, well, good. I don't care where you learn stuff from. That doesn't matter. I learned a ton of stuff from Peanuts, for crying out loud. So, you know, I'm not fussy. I just want to know if you know stuff. Question number 8. Who
You knew
is
how much I learned from FKCD articles.
cool? All right. Who is the most famous Roman of them all? There is really only one answer to that question. Eliza seems unimpressed. Who's the most famous Roman of them all? And oh, my finches are back. Cool. I love my birds. I've mentioned that before, I think. I love my birds. That's actually a pretty good answer, Cope. Not true, unfortunately, but pretty good. I really want to get to 10 here, so let's do 9. 9. Name one province. Oh, for poop's sake. Never mind. Sorry. To everyone. Name one province of Rome. That should be 9. Name one province of Rome. Any province will do. And number 10, just to round us out here, number 10, name a Roman building. Roman buildings have names. There's lots of them. Some of them are still there. And time's up. All right, let's go. Number 1. Question number 1. A house. No. No. I'm sorry. If you had said a domicilia, I would have said, oh, well then. But no. No. Sorry. No. All right. Let's go back to number 1. Approximately when was Rome founded? Answers, please. You can type them in the chat. You can say them. Abby says 850 BC.
730 BC.
750 BC. All these are, the BC part is correct. I will tell you that. More answers? Come on, everybody, have a take. Go big. Well, I was going to say go big or stay home, but you already did stay home. So anyway, so go big anyway. Okay, so we have 850, 750, 1900. Oh, 1900. Okay. That's, yeah. All right.
Sounds like a
Multiple
conspiracy theory.
answers are accepted as being correct here. Traditionally, mythologically, 750 would be correct. But there is some evidence that there was stuff at Rome as back as far as 850. So I will accept anything in between 850 and 750. All those, anything in there would be correct for your approximately. That would be BC, of course. Did you win? Yes, of course you did. 1900 BC. Yeah, no. Okay. Who founded Rome?
Romulus and Remus.
That is one of the correct answers.
That's one of my favorite stories.
You like that, huh? Well, I'll let you tell that in a minute. Raise your hand if you had Romulus and Remus. And or Romulus or Remus. Okay. How many of you had somebody else? How many of you didn't have anybody at all? And okay, you know what? That's probably more accurate. Like, it's probably not just one guy who said, now we have Rome. That's probably not really how it worked. But there is one other person that you could put on this that none of you said. Does anybody have any idea who that might be? I'll give you a hint. He's a Trojan.
Osiris. No, wrong.
No, that's no.
Horus? Oh, it's not his name either. The dude from that one book.
There is a dude from that one book. Yeah,
It's what's his name?
that one guy. Yeah,
Yeah, that one guy.
that guy. Yes, correct. Well done, Cope. Yes, that one.
Ha
That guy's name is Aeneas.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that guy. I'm going to have you guys read some of the Aeneid for our next class, which, by the way, our next class will be in Idaho on the Ides of March. And if you're thinking to yourself, wow, I should really bring my personal dagger to that, you're right. You should. I know you all have one, so just, get it out. And McKenna's like, what? No. A violin bow will work fine.
Aya has a whole sword.
You know what? Actually, I did not think of this until just now, but I just thought of it, and it's awesome, so I'm going to say it. So you lost your dagger. Whoa. Oh, that's where that extra dagger came from. I need some violins, because I have this now in my head. I have this, theater piece that I really want to do. It needs live music, so I need a couple people to bring violins.
Just violins.
Okay. And I'm already volunteering Copeland as tribute to play Julius Caesar for this little theater piece. I don't know, if his collarbone is broken though, now I'm getting a little nervous. That might not work out so good. Anyway, all right. So what was that? Just two? It's gonna take forever. Okay. That was two. Yeah, Romulus, Remus, also Aeneas. Okay, so Aeneas is one of the Trojan heroes, and he was, of course, like all the other Trojans, ejected from Troy at the end of the Trojan War by Wily Coyote. No, Wily Odysseus. We're finally. I did not get the reference, but it's awesome. So he escaped carrying his father Anchises on his back. escaped on a ship, and then he had, stop me if you think you've heard this before, a 10-year journey around the Mediterranean, being chased by the gods, hated by some, loved by others, until he arrived. He had many adventures. He broke Circe's heart. Circe? No, not Circe. Maybe Circe. I don't think it's Circe. It's Dido. He broke Dido's heart. And she killed herself by jumping off her tower, after he left her. Because the gods forced him to leave because he had a destiny to go and to found the city of Rome. His grandchildren are supposed to be Romulus and Remus, twins, who apparently Aeneas didn't take very good care of. We'll get to that myth in just a moment. But he also Aeneas shows back up in a lovely book that at some point, probably at the very end of the year, we will look at Dante's Inferno, just for fun. Even though it doesn't have a lot to do with Rome, it's still like Romanesque. And Dante's Inferno is, does anybody know have heard of that before? Dante descends into hell, but he has a guide, and his guide is Aeneas, because Aeneas is the founder of Rome. Apparently hell is underneath Rome. I didn't write the book. I did not write the book, okay? I'm just telling you what is in the book. Dante wrote several things, but his three most famous books are the Inferno, the Purgatorio, and the Paradiso, describing hell and its 7 or 9 levels. Purgatorio, which is purgatory, and then paradise. Take a wild guess which of those three sells the most copies.
Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, it's not close. Nobody reads Purgatorio and Paradiso. They're boring. Inferno is fun. Like, his trip down through hell is really interesting, to the point that there is now an interactive guide to hell seriously, I will send you in my email here, I will send you the link. It's an interactive guide. You can click down through the levels of hell, see who's in them, what are the punishments that go with being in those parts of hell. And of course, the very bottom of hell, you have Satan himself. And Satan is half frozen in a block of ice. He's a big winged demon, and he has 3 heads, and he is chewing on the 3 great traitors of all time. You could probably name one of those without too much trouble.
Well, Hitler, because that's usually the place everyone's
Yeah,
mind
but
goes
Dante was 500 years before Hitler, so that's not going to work.
to. Julius Caesar?
I can't remember if Caesar is in the 9th circle or the 8th circle of hell. He does come in for some hell, though. Josh, are you raising your hand, or are you just checking out your cool shadow puppet things you can make while you're it's apparently the latter. Judas is being chewed on by Satan. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, Aeneas would also be an acceptable answer to the founder of Rome. What was the original form of government in Rome? Oh, wait. Sorry. No. Stop! Somebody tell me the legend of Romulus and Remus. That's where we were at, because I wanted to talk about Romulus and Remus. Who was it? Was it Rachel Lou? Was that you who said this is like your favorite story? Is that your thumb floating in front of your sister's face? Is that your sister's thumb? I don't know. Anyway, okay. Eliza's just not really having it this morning. I don't think she got any sleep last night. Hot date out with your boyfriend. You gotta get
Okay.
to rest. Okay, Rachel, tell me the story.
Okay, so like I can't remember what time it was, but there was like this king and he had like two baby twin sons, and he was like worried that they would like take over his throne, and so he told the servant, "Go like get rid of these kids. I don't need them anymore."
Or like kill them.
Or,
That
like, kill
never
them.
happens. I never heard that story before. That's totally new. Yeah.
Sorry, I can't really remember all the parts.
No, you're doing great. Keep going.
Okay, good.
Keep. You're doing great. Keep
And
going.
the servant's like, "I kind of feel sorry for these baby boys." So he like puts them in a basket and they float along the river.
Wait, I know this part. Then they're fished out by Pharaoh's daughter, and they become.
No.
Then they lead the Israelites. Oh,
You take them
shoot,
into
sorry.
the
Never mind. I got confused for a minute. Go ahead.
Then he leaves them out in the forest. And then the storm gets them.
Or maybe he left them out in the forest
Anything's possible.
because in the next part, this wolf comes and she hears them. She's like, "I'll take you as one of my own." And then one day there was like this like guy. I can't remember if he was like a shepherd, not a shepherd.
Woodsman.
Probably like a fish seller who catch fish, a fisherman. And he hears this crying, and he sees these naked baby boys playing with the mother's cubs, wolves, and they're like so happy. He's like, he like goes and he takes the boys and he takes them back to his house, and then he raises them. And then later, when they're big and old, they go to like this like valley. I can't remember if it's like this nice place.
They were big and old.
Hey! And they build a wall around it. They're like, "This will be a great city with lots of things and stuff. I shall be king," said like Remus. I can't remember. Remus. And then Remus is like,
This is why I won't
Wait!
tell anybody.
"But we built this together."
Andrew, get away from my food.
And so they're like, I can't remember, but one of them kills the other, I think.
It's easy to remember.
Yeah.
It's easy to remember which one is which because the one who is the founder of Rome gives his name to Rome. So that's Romulus. Romulus kills
Romulus, yes.
Yeah, so Romulus kills Remus. There you go. This is the famous statue of the she-wolf suckling Romulus and Remus. All right, now I got to tell you, how many of you are buying that legend? Like, that is 100% the truth. There you go. That's what it looks like for real. No, not a lot of takers there, but that's the she-wolf. Well, I have news for you. I actually believe this legend, sort of. Yeah, that's disturbing. Sorry, little kids, close your eyes. All right, so, although, I'm sorry. You've seen it. You're homeschooled kids. You all have flocks of rabbits in your backyard or chickens or something. Dogs, cats that you shear for the wool, whatever. Anyway, so that got a smile from Eliza. That's good. Okay. She's warming up. She just didn't have her coffee this morning. All right. So in Latin, we'll get to that in a minute. In Latin, there's a slang term for a tavern wench. And the slang term for a tavern wench is lupa, which also happens to be a female wolf. A she-wolf is also called a lupa. So I actually think, and they've done some excavations from the earliest days of Rome, and there's almost certainly a small village with a tavern, kind of, they wouldn't have called it a tavern, but whatever, an inn or whatever, on that spot where Rome was founded. And if you have a tavern, you're going to have tavern wenches. And the tavern wench might have scooped these children up and adopted them or whatever. I do not think they were floating down the Tiber in a basket, although that is a possibility, I suppose.
That's so cool.
The Tiber is not the place you want to put a kid in a basket. But it is quite possible that they really were adopted by a lupa. It just wasn't a female wolf. And raised there. And then anytime a historical story involves murder of one person by another who over power and dominion, then you can almost certainly believe it. because it's almost always true. Because people kill each other for that stuff all the time. Way back to Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel, man. I mean, they go all the way back. So humans, we like to kill each other for power. We just do. Try it amongst yourselves. No, not yet. Do it on the 15th. On the 15th, I'll give you your chance. But not until the Ides of March. Okay, number 3. Number 3, hooray! We finally got to question number 3. Question number 3, what was the original form of government in Rome?
Well, apparently murdering your brother, if that's a form of government.
It's not really a governmental form. That's more of like a behavior of a government.
Anarchy?
Democracy, kingship, oligarchy. Anybody else? More votes? Anybody have something else? Of course you have something else.
Socialism.
Socialism. Yes, that's right. Marxian socialism. No. Anarchy. Well, okay. Anarchy is a chimera. It doesn't really exist. You can't really have anarchy because as soon as you have 3 people in a room, you have some kind of anarchy. But a monarchy is correct. This is a trick question. Rome is actually famous for not having monarchies, but its original form of government was a monarchy. For about 250 years, Rome was a monarchy. All the way up to a guy named Tarquin the Proud. Not kidding.
That is a fabulous name.
Isn't it a great name? Tarquin the Proud, not to be confused with Pippin the Short, whom we'll talk about next year. Not kidding. Actual historical figure, hugely important in the history of Western civilization.
What did he do so I can make puns of his name?
It is an unfortunate name for the 21st century, but yes, Pippin the Short. We will learn about Pippin the Short next year. He is sandwiched in between 2 of the most important historical characters in all of Western civilization. He gets no credit. We will give him a little credit because he's short. Man, I'm killing it today. No. Josie's like, dude, that was really not good, man. That was not okay. All right, I'm working on it. All right, so, yeah, okay. So, initially monarchy for about 250 years, up to Tarquinius Superbus. Tarquinius Superbus is a name you need to know. If you're going to be educated people, you need to know who Tarquinius Superbus was. He's the last of the Roman kings. He will be overthrown in a bloody coup and run away to the Etruscans and start a war that we will talk quite a bit about here in a few minutes. Tarquinius Superbus is the last of the Roman dictators. Question number 5, what is the final form? What is the final form of government in Rome?
Anarchy.
Not quite. That doesn't really exist. It was pretty chaotic, but it was not an anarchy. Dictatorship, okay. Anybody else?
Democratic Republic.
Democratic Republic is a good answer. Anybody else?
Democratic Republic. Mr. C,
What?
did you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Did you like my irritating little song?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Is it? So what was the question again?
The question is, what is the final form of government in Rome? It's also a trick question. It is not a democratic republic. Rome is famous for having a democratic republic, but that was between the kings and the eventual form of government, which was I will accept monarchy and I will accept dictatorship. You have an emperor in Rome, and the emperor is the one who is basically running Rome. So that's after about, I should have asked that question. Who is the first emperor in Rome? Hang on a minute. Apparently I'm getting packages I have to sign for today.
No! Hey guys, Mr. C is gone. Let's talk about him.
Talk
No
about
one has anything? I don't know, embarrassing stuff. Like, I don't know. Mr. C does a pretty good job of embarrassing himself. He doesn't really need our help.
Can I have
It's morning time. It's morning time, and I'm awake to listen to history. Do you know?
We're very proud of you, Jetty. I'm very proud of you.
Like how I will destroy Jetty's brother in dodgeball.
Joshy, he's dissing you. You
Really?
didn't
You want to
destroy
bet?
him if you tried.
Are you sleeping, Josh?
Last I checked, Isaac, I was taking out basically half your team before they got me out.
I wasn't trying.
The only people that got me out were the little kids I
Yes.
was paying attention to.
But still, it was pathetic that little kids got you.
How many times you got by little kids?
I hate dodgeball.
Wow.
Dodgeball's fun.
Sorry.
Dodgeball is not fun.
Somebody
You're
sent me.
welcome.
You just get hit by a ball and then you have to
Guys, he's back.
No, it's okay.
You have a check?
It's fine.
Guys, he's back. Stop talking about him.
Okay, so, yes. Who was the first emperor of Rome? Anybody know? You should know.
Romus.
I typed it in the chat.
Romus.
You know this. You know
No,
this.
Romus. As in Romus and Ramus.
No.
It's Romus.
Those guys are kings. I'm talking about emperors. The first emperor of Rome. Come on. You know the answer to this.
Oh, it's Tarquin the Proud.
It is not. He's just a king. Rome's not an empire. Rome was
I'm freaking scared.
smaller than Boise at that point.
That's sad.
Julius
You know
Caesar?
the answer to this. You should. You better know the answer to this. All right,
Is
we're
it
going to come back to
Julius
that.
Caesar?
We're going to come back to that. That's a problem. Okay, if you don't know Tarquinius Superbus, ask 1,000 people on the street. None of them know it either. But you gotta know who the first emperor was. So we'll come back to that. All right, number 5. What language did they speak in Rome? Everybody should get this.
Latin. They spoke
Greek is
Latin.
not wrong, but it's not right either. Thank you, Josie. Latin is the language of Rome. For extra points, why do they call it Latin?
Because of the Latino dancers.
No. Because Rome was founded in an area that was called Latium. And the people who lived in Latium spoke Latin. Okay. There were other people there who spoke other languages, but they were all basically Latinate languages. Number 6, approximately when did Rome fall?
Whenever Thomas Aquinas died.
Really? I don't know what
Well
time.
before Thomas Aquinas. 500, okay? That's 500 BC, okay? No, it's not. I'll give you a hint. It's not BC.
Mr. C.
Yep.
I don't know when they fell, but I think I know why they fell. It was
And
when
that
the
what?
Ottoman Turks. I can't wait, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think they fell because when the Ottoman Turks came over the border, plus the Roman Empire was getting way too huge for the whole Roman like army to protect and it's falling apart. In the end, they tried to split it in two to help, and one side was like way more wealthy and doing better, where the other was like really poor and not doing well. In the end, it just all fell. That's all I can do.
Okay. All right. That's actually kind of a trick question as well. Rome didn't really fall so much as it sort of fizzled. And Regilou is right about most of that. They split it in two to try to keep it together. The eastern part of the empire actually lasted a lot longer, another 500 or 600 years after the western part fell. But since we're talking about Rome, the big one to remember is 400. It's actually 410. But 410, the Visigoths under Alaric sack and burn Rome in what is generally accepted as like the beginning of the end. Rome was sacked several more times after that. But that's really like that's the big one. That's when Rome stops being Rome. So that's the one to remember is Alaric's sack of Rome in 410. That's 410 AD, which means that if Rome was founded in like 700 some odd BC, 800 some odd BC, how long did Rome last as an empire, or as a going concern? Like
A long time.
well, more than 1,000 years, which is a pretty good run. That's a pretty good run. Okay.
That's amazing.
Question number 7. Number 7. What does the Roman inscription SPQR stand for?
No one knows.
That is not true.
Did it stand for like the army or something?
The army carried it. They would carry it on a pole. They would put an eagle. Symbol of Rome is an eagle. You may say to yourself, hey, wait a minute. The symbol of the United States is an eagle, too. Yeah,
Exactly.
I bet that's
We are Rome. Which is why we're invincible.
I bet that's a blind coincidence. I bet that's just no. The imagery is very, very similar. I'll talk about some more of that in a minute. Did it carry an eagle on a pole, and underneath the eagle would be the inscription SPQR. Does anybody know what that means? Some people question
Honor, isn't it?
Not really, no.
Did it stand for the emperor?
Although to capture a legion's eagle, to capture a Roman eagle that was pretty awesome. No. It means Senatus Populusque Romanus. SP, the que is the Q. So SPQR, Senatus Populusque Romanus, the Senate and the people of Rome. Not terribly inspirational to me, but it reminds me, the SPQR thing actually does remind me of something that you will pretty much all be familiar with. Can you think of anybody else who put a piece of memorabilia on a pole and carried it into battle to inspire the troops? Isaac can think of something.
Captain Moroni?
Very good. Morgan, is that what you're going to say? Okay, I thought so. Yeah. This seems to be like a human thing. This is the kind of thing humans do. So that is what they would carry into battle. Napoleon also had carried eagles into battle. He thought he was the heir to the Roman tradition, which is why he spent so much time attacking Italy, which is also a good idea because Italians don't really fight that well. Not since Rome, anyway. 8. Who is the most famous Roman of them all?
Jesus.
It- I'm getting too old for this. Not Jesus. No, Jesus was not a Roman. Jesus was a Hebrew.
Yeah, but he was in Rome.
No, he wasn't. He was in one of the outlying provinces. This is like saying,
Tomato, potato.
dude, this is like saying that some guy who lives in Wyoming might as well have been president of the United States because he lived in the U.S. No. Not. He was kilted by Rome. Yeah, okay, well.
I'm saying
That's right.
some dude in Wyoming is a citizen of the United States.
Probably, not necessarily. And Jesus was not a citizen of Rome.
Tomato, potato.
Let's call
Yeah, he was
the whole
killed
thing
by
off.
Rome. There you go.
Let's call the whole thing off. Okay, Julius Caesar is definitely correct. I mean, the guy has a chain of pizza restaurants.
Salad.
He has a salad. He has a medical procedure for delivering children. And that one actually is, in fact, named after him. The other ones are not. Well, Little Caesar, yes, Little Caesar's is named after. Little Caesar's is named after Caesar. But, yeah, it's such an honor. Yeah, Caesar salad is not. Caesar means
He also has a mom.
Caesar is a word that means cut in Latin. Caesar, to cut. So a Caesar salad just has chopped lettuce. That's why it's called a Caesar salad. But Caesar himself was called Caesar because he was cut loose from his mother. A C-section, also known as a Caesarean section, is named after Caesar because Caesar was delivered via Caesarean section. Julius Caesar is definitely, yes, he does have a month. Which month is Caesar's month? That would be July, that's correct. Caesar's adopted grandnephew, Octavian, also has a month. What month is that?
August.
That would be August. Augustus, sweetheart. Yes, it would be August. These are in
Hey, does anyone know why the year starts in January?
Morgan apparently does. Go ahead, Morgan.
I think it's because of the Roman god Janus. He has two faces, and it's something to like he's like god of new beginnings and choosing what you can do in the new year. So.
Yes.
I never knew that. That's cool.
He faces
But that's why they named it January. That's not necessarily why they put January in the beginning.
Well, I like it because Janus is the two-faced god, so he faces both forward and backward, like at the beginning of the year. But why?
Well, yeah, but why is
Well, go
January
ahead.
right where it is in the year?
What were you going to say?
It's because the Roman Senate started on that day, and so they just said, we'll call that day January and have it be the first day.
Love it. That's great. Why is September, which would be the 7th month, and October, which would be the 8th month, and November, which would be the 9th month, and December, which would be the 10th month, why are those months actually 9, 10, 11, and 12 instead of 7, 8, 9, and 10? It's Augustus's fault. Augustus got tired of having to adjust the calendar all the time because the months kept getting screwed up. So he stuck 2 months in there. He named one of them July after Julius and one of them August after himself because he named a lot of things after himself.
Does anyone here know why April is the best month of the year?
I dispute the premise of the question. I don't think April is the best month of the year.
It is.
No.
Anything important or cool or fun will happen on April.
The first.
Not
Although
just-
April, there's an alarming number of stuff that does happen in April. Founding of the
Exactly.
church, probably the birth, it's usually Easter.
Next.
Anyway.
Avengers movie.
Oh yes, there's that too. Yes. This year. Okay, so Augustus is the first Roman emperor. His way was paved to the throne by his granduncle Caesar, Julius Caesar. And when Caesar died, just before he died, he adopted his grandnephew Octavian as his heir. Octavian will then take over power in a process that I will describe to you at another time. Because we don't have time to talk about that right now. But that's the answer to who is the first Roman emperor, as well as is Augustus Caesar, the heir to Julius Caesar. Number 9, name one province of Rome.
Greece.
Grecia would have been a Roman province, yes. Name another one. Constantinople, no, because Constantine doesn't, no. Constantinople is a city, not a province. Syria, yes. I can't remember what that one would have been called, but yes, probably so. Syria would have been a Roman province, way out in the sticks. That would have been where they stuck you if they didn't like you when you're governor. But right next to it, a little bit closer to Rome, is one you were all familiar with, which is Judea. Judea is a Roman province. But there are dozens and dozens and dozens more. Dacia is a province. The one that I think you might be familiar with is Gaul. There are 2 Gauls, actually. There is a Cisalpine Gaul. Cisalpine Gaul is Gaul that is this side of the Alps. And there is Transalpine Gaul. Transalpine Gaul is the part of Gaul that's over the Alps. That's what we call France. Those of you who know your comic books, Asterix comics are set in Gaul during the reign of Julius Caesar, during the generalship of Julius Caesar, when Julius Caesar was made governor of Transalpine Gaul. So Gaul is one of those. Britannia would also be a Roman province. Where would Britannia be?
It wouldn't be all the way out on, the Britain.
It would, actually.
Right?
Yeah, weird. Isn't that weird? It would be.
Far?
Yeah, no, it's a weird coincidence, I think. Also, Germania. And where would Germania be?
Somewhere near Germany?
Yeah, actually would be Germany. This is why, okay, so Britannia gives its name to the island of Britain. But the people who live in Britain, what do they call themselves? Most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. They're English.
Spaniards.
Yes. What do the people who live in Gaul call themselves, pretty much? No. They call themselves French. They're Franks, which comes to us as French or France. What about the people who live in Germania? What do they call themselves?
German.
No, they do not. We call them German. But they don't call themselves German. They call themselves Deutsche. Latin is such a dominant language that it even changes the names of what people call themselves. For us, lots of English, although not all of it. The English language is Germanic in structure, but most of its vocabulary is Latinate and comes from the Franks. We do not have time this year to get into how all that happened, but we will do it next year when we set up our intensive units on World War I and World War II, which is what we'll be covering next year. I hope you will all be back next year for more of these shenanigans. And bring your friends, because we like friends, right? Okay. I'm pleased. Well, if I get Abby and McKenna really after that, it's like everybody else. You'd be welcome to come along, but no. No, I want every one of you, if I can get you. And if I can't cope, I don't know what you're going to do with your life next year, but if you want to go to college, I'll be teaching at college, and I would love to teach rhetoric with you.
What college?
We will speak about this. Mount Liberty is the name of the college. It is a relatively inexpensive liberal arts weirdness college in Salt Lake City.
I'm going to BYUI.
Ah, well, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
What else do we have? Do we have 10? 10. Did we get to 9? We did get to 9. Number 10, number 10, number 10. Name a Roman building. Come on, you should all be able to name a Roman building. The Colosseum, yes, that's correct, McKenna. It's not like that, but I know what you mean.
The Parthenon?
The Parthenon is in Greece. Doesn't count.
Yes.
But, as you will see next year if you go on our trip, Leaning Tower of Pisa. Now, that is a Renaissance, not a Roman building. The Pantheon is a Roman building. Here. Let's get some pictures so you can see. I have been to the Pantheon. I've been around the Colosseum. It was closed when I was there, and I was not happy about it, but what are you going to do? All right. Sure. I was not happy. Also, Alfredo's was closed, so I could not get fettuccine Alfredo. That also made me mad. That right there is the Pantheon of Rome. The Pantheon is an incredibly impressive building. Incredibly impressive. Here is the interior of the Pantheon.
Wow.
This entire structure, I mean, these are people down here. This is how big this is. This entire thing was built without a crane.
Wearing.
And no rebar, no steel. It's entirely stone. The engineering that goes into this thing is impossible to believe. It's jaw-dropping when you get there. Also, yes, a number of you mentioned, probably the most famous building in Rome and possibly the most famous building in the world,
I can do something.
unless it's the pyramids, is the Colosseum in Rome. Looks something like this on the outside, and looks something like this on the inside, although I've not been inside because I didn't get to go inside when I was in Rome. And that makes me sad, and I intend to fix that when I go back next year.
Mr. C,
Yeah.
what about the Colosseum in Verona? The Romans built that.
Also Roman. Yeah, that definitely counts. You betcha. We don't have any pictures of the Circus Maximus, but these are some representations of what the Circus Maximus would look like. I would have accepted the Circus Maximus for sure. I would have accepted the Temple of Janus on the Capitoline Hill.
How do we know that?
How do you know
What
what?
it looks like?
Because
How do we know what it looks like?
we got bits and pieces, and we also have reports from other people as to what it looked like, and we have other circuses in other towns that are still intact. This one's just bigger. This thing was huge.
Cool.
Circus Maximus is gigantic. This is pretty good representation. This is about 3 football fields, about 3 stadia. By the way, a stadium is a single unit of Roman measure. Our stadium, when we have a stadium, our stadia are not, generally speaking, big enough to be a stadium. But they're, well, actually they would be, because it's about 100 yards, roughly. So yeah, any of those would work for that. Okay. Let's stop share for just a minute. All right, so let's go back. The architecture is incredible in Rome. The Romans built stuff to last. There are still Roman aqueducts that are, I would have accepted aqueducts as well. What is an aqueduct? Anybody know?
A house.
No. Mighty Bex.
It was used to bring water from the mountains over to the Romans.
Correct, yeah. Roman aqueducts, I'll show you, I have pictures of those too. It's a water system, yes. Aqua, the word aqua comes from the Latin for aqua, for water. Yeah, an aqueduct, a duct is a pipe that carries stuff. So an aqueduct is a pipe that carries water, is a system that carries water. The Romans built those things, and some of them are still in use today because they lasted for 2,000 years. They poured concrete of a type that would resist erosion even in salt water, which is like one of the hardest things to do. We keep having to replace our concrete. Romans built they put concrete pilings in their dock systems at their harbors that are so resistant to salt water that they're still there, still functioning 2,000 years after they poured them. We don't know how they did it. Like we can't duplicate the technology. We can't get the concrete to be like their concrete is. We don't know how to do it. The Romans, more or less, invented concrete. They loved concrete. They would build with stone, but they would make the stone blocks out of concrete. There's a particular kind of ash in Italy that mixes really well with their slurry and turns it into this incredibly hard substance. Most of our concrete, we basically got the idea from the Romans. The Romans also lend all kinds of imagery to the United States. I mean, it's no coincidence that the front of the Pantheon looks like the front of the Parthenon, and the front of the Supreme Court building in the United States looks just like the front of the Pantheon in Rome. Not to mention the White House with its columns, or the Capitol, which looks just like Roman buildings, Capitoline Roman buildings. There is a hill. In fact, Rome is alleged to have 7 hills. One of them is the Capitoline Hill. And ever since then, our word capital comes from the Capitoline Hill. Oh, cool. Good, Cope. That's awesome. All their governmental systems. I need to show you this stuff so that you can see this. Rostrum, Speaker of the House. A rostrum, by the way, is a Roman word for
Restroom.
A restroom. No, not a restroom. A rostrum is a not for the Speaker of the House. I need that for the Senate. Our word Senate, of course, comes from the Latin word senatus. Here is, it's a pretty bad picture, but it'll probably do. Okay. I want something a little closer than that, but this will do. Okay, so the word senatus, of course, comes from the Latin word for Senate. And our Senate is modeled after, although isn't exactly like, the Roman Senate. Now, there's some imagery here that's worth paying attention to. First of all, what do you see here back behind the rostrum for the Senate? What do we got back here architecturally?
Pillars?
Yeah, pillars. These are Greek pillars. We like those. They seem to us to be very cool. But right here are some sort of interesting, and I don't think I can really zoom in on this, but maybe I can try.
Drag it onto your desktop and then click on it, and there's an option.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm sure there's a picture that's closer. I just have to get, I have to tell it what it is that I'm actually looking for, and it will give it to me. That's a little better. How about a bigger? That's better. That is what it looks like. All right, so that is what is on the wall behind the Senate, in the Senate chambers. What are we looking at here? What is this?
A scroll and olive branches and maybe
Okay, those are olive branches for sure. Why olive branches? Those might be laurels. But I think they're olive branches.
because didn't the Greeks use those to honor someone?
Yes. The victor gets a laurel wreath, so it's a symbol of victory. But then what is in the middle of that, though?
Is it like an axe with a very handle?
Yeah, this is.
Scroll.
It's a bundle of sticks, actually. It is not a scroll. It is a bundle of sticks.
Is that an axe?
Olive branches, and it is an axe head. Yes, it is. Very good. This is called the fasces. If you were a consul or even, I guess, a senator, you would have, when you walked through Rome, you would have ahead of you a pair of, or at least one, Roman lictors. Does anybody know what a lictor does? You might know this from the story of Jesus, maybe.
He licks you.
No, close. There is a sort of a tongue-like thing that he does.
He slappers on you?
But not with his tongue. He does it with a leather strap attached to a handle.
He said lick you.
Yeah, it's sort of like
Lick
our
you.
word
Lick.
to lick comes from the Roman word lictor. And it's because the lictor, a lictor carries a whip. And the whip would flick out like a snake's tongue. That's why the word lick, which I did not realize until right now, but that's why the word lick comes from the Latin word lictor, because it's like a snake's tongue lashing out.
That's so cool.
When Jesus is flogged,
An idiot. He broke his bracelet.
when they flog Jesus, he is flogged by lictors, who are wielding the cat of nine tails, but I forget what it's called now in Latin. Anyway, they whip him with their
Axe cradle
no, it's
or Roman candle.
so you would have these lictors would go ahead of you, and the lictors would to part the crowds, and because there's always crowds everywhere in Rome. Rome is jammed full of people. So the lictors would part the crowd so they didn't touch you, because you don't want to be defiled by touching these people. So use their whips, and they would also use the fasces, a bundle of sticks with an axe head to sort of shove people out of the way. It's a symbol of Roman power. There's an English word that we use that comes directly from the word fasces. What is it? Can you think of it?
Face?
Nope. Good idea, though.
Facet.
Very good, but no. Fascist. A fascist is somebody who wants the government to wield supreme power. That's what a fascist is. It comes from the Latin word fasces, which symbolizes Roman power. We have on the wall of the Senate office building, on the wall of the Senate itself, right there, we have a pair of fasces. This is a really great picture for various reasons. Stop writing on my board. Over here, what is this? You see this over here? This, right here. You see this? What is this?
It's a fascist.
No, that's what this is. What is this? Over here.
A staff with an eagle on it?
It's a staff with an eagle on it. It doesn't say SPQR, but it might as well. It's exactly the same as you would carry into battle in Rome. Let's hang on a minute. Let's look at something else here. Man, we're getting to like none of the stuff I wanted to talk to you about today, but this is all fun. Like Roman stuff is awesome. I'm actually a Roman historian. This is my favorite stuff.
Why?
I don't know. Because Great Seal of the United States. Let's look at the Great Seal of the United States and see what it is that, oh, look, it's an eagle. That's weird. I'm sure that's just a coincidence.
And an olive branch.
The eagle is also holding an olive branch. Yes, that's right. We don't grow olives in the United States, really. That is a Greek and Latin symbol. It's a Roman symbol. Also, he's holding a bunch of arrows. Now, if you know your national treasure, there is another seal, very much like, but slightly different than this one, in which he is holding a scroll. That is the seal of the president. Yeah, remember that one? Yeah. That's the seal of the presidency. It's a different symbol. But these are all Roman symbols. I mean, well, not all of them, but a lot of them, even down to this right here. What is on this scroll that is being held in the beak of the eagle?
Latin.
It is Latin. What does it mean?
Is it we the people or in God we trust?
Nope, neither one. E pluribus unum. Out of many, one. That's what that is the motto of the United States. It's not in God we trust. It is out of many, one. Which I think is pretty cool. I like that motto. Okay, so the reason I go through all of that stuff with you is because I want you to understand something. We talk about all this ancient history, and it's like, oh, it's cool, we do mythology and all this fun stuff, okay? But the things we're talking about in Rome, these are things that have direct, immediate impact in your life right now.
I said that my...
So our governmental system comes directly out of the Roman Republic, right down to calling our chief legislative body the Senate. We're not going to talk extensively about the Roman governmental system today because there's just too much to cover. there'll be some reading to do about it, preferably something not too terribly complex. But I have a couple of stories that I want you to read and a couple of things that I want you to look at, because the Roman system of government comes directly down to us for various reasons, a couple of which I'm about to tell you right now. In the very earliest days of the Roman Republic, this is after they threw out Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin goes to the local competitive tribe and says, Rome wants to take over the world, we better stop them now. I can show you how to do it because I know all their defenses. These are the Etruscans. Those of you who are taking notes, this is a good word to write down. The Etruscans are one of the competitive tribes in central Italy. Now I need a map. So let's see, we have to have a map. Ooh, that's the one I want. It's good, but it's not very good. It's good, but it's not very good. Is that better? Not really. Can't really get the map. I don't really have the map I want. Let's try early Rome. See if I get what, no, those are pictures. Map, how about? Better. Oh, that's good. Okay, so here we go. Should have grabbed this before I started, but that's okay. It'll work now. All right, so here is a map of Rome. Early on in the period of the Republic. Okay, so let's get a little bit bigger one. Let's blow this sucker up a little bit so it's a little easier to see. Okay, so right here you have Rome, and they're surrounded by, and there's all these names of all these tribes, okay? So you have the Tarquirii and the Cosii, the Equiculi, the Marsi, the Volsci, all of these around here. These are all either Samnite tribes or Etruscan tribes. And they fight with Rome on and off for hundreds of years. Right after they throw Tarquin out, Tarquin goes to a guy named Lars Porsena. This is a name you might want to know.
Lars
Porsena, and he says, we need to take over Rome now or they're going to overrun us. As it turns out, Tarquin is right about this. Porsena agrees and says, okay, we will attack Rome. Rome at this point is not a very big place. It's just a single city with a couple of outlying villages, amici, friends, who are their allies. But Rome is a danger. And so people want to make sure that they kind of keep Rome from growing. They don't want Rome to get out of control. Lars attacks Rome, and he marshals a bunch of tribes. They march on Rome, and they're quite successful. They come deep into Roman territory, and at this point, Rome has, there's no pictures of this stuff, so you have to kind of think of it. Rome is kind of in a bowl. There's 7 hills around, and Rome kind of sits down in this bowl, right? So the Romans, and then the Tiber flows down like this on the eastern edge of Rome. Most of Rome is on the western edge of Rome. Most of Rome is east of the Tiber. But the Romans there's a hill over there that they had a fortress on, and then there's a bridge between the fortress and the city. So the Etruscans attack the fortress, and they destroy it and run off the Romans, and they are now, there's not really Rome's walls. How do I describe this? Okay, so the Tiber sits here, And Rome has its walls around like this with the city in the middle. There's no walls over here by the Tiber. The Tiber River is itself like a wall, right? So later they put walls up. But they're just wooden walls, not big stone walls. They're not, not really defensible. So when the Etruscans crush the fortress and take that over, there's this big bridge, and they can just really just walk right into Rome almost. So that's the Romans are terrified. They're all running around screaming, "What are we going to do? How are we going to stop them?" And then we have this wonderful scene, which I have to read to you because it's so brilliantly done. Let me pull this up here. I have this on my iPad. Okay, so now I need the actual. Okay, so those of you who like your science fiction, yes, this class is wild and random because you never know. Those of you who like your science fiction, Cope is very excited. There's a movie called Oblivion, came out 4 or 5 years ago, starring Tom Cruise. Really good science fiction, actually. I thought it was a pretty good film. In this film, Earth has been destroyed, and our hero is protecting it against further destruction until they can get off the planet. He finds himself in a library, in fact, it's the New York Public Library, which has been destroyed, but there is a book in there, a book of poetry. And the book is a book of poems by Thomas Babington Macaulay called The Lays of Ancient Rome. He wrote a bunch of poems about ancient Rome. And he reads the poem. I am going to read you some of this poem. Because I want you to understand, this was not a Latin poem, but it's about something that happened at this period of time that every Roman kid knew. There were certain stories that every kid in Rome knew, and this is one of those stories. As the Etruscans are coming down the hill, the Romans are freaking out. They're like, their city's going to be destroyed. What are they going to do? We have this. But the consul's brow was sad, and the consul's speech was low, and darkly looked he at the wall, and darkly at the foe. Their van, that's their advance guard, will be upon us before the bridge goes down, and if they once might win the bridge, what hope to save the town? Then out spoke brave Horatius, the captain of the gate. To every man upon this earth, death cometh soon or late. And how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? And for the tender mother who dandled him to rest, and for the wife who nurses his baby at her breast, and for the holy maidens who feed the eternal flame, to save them from false Sextus that wrought the deed of shame, hew down the bridge, Sir Consul, with all the speed ye may. I, with 2 more to help me, will hold the foe in play. In yon straight path 1,000 may well be stopped by 3. Now who will stand on either hand and keep the bridge with me? Then outspake Spurius Lartius, a Ramnian proud was he. Lo, I will stand at thy right hand and keep the bridge with thee. And outspake strong Herminius, of Titian blood was he. I will abide on thy left side and keep the bridge with thee. Horatius, quoth the consul, as thou sayest, so let it be. And straight against that great array, forth went the dauntless three. I recommend the entire poem to you because it's brilliant. But in my family, maybe that's probably one of our great phrases. My sons and I will say, whenever we get in trouble and things look really bad, we will say to each other, how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the temples of his gods? This is called Horatius at the Bridge by Thomas Babington Macaulay. I will send out links to this stuff as well. It's a brilliant and wonderful poem, and we quote this to each other all the time. And when somebody says that, in my family, when somebody says, how can man die better? Then it is the responsibility of us as members of the family to say, lo, I will stand on thy right hand and keep the bridge with thee. And we stand together. Well, they did. They stood against, the three of them stood at the end of the bridge, while on the other end, the Romans are hacking away at the bridge with their axes to get it to fall into the Tiber so that the Etruscans can't use it. And Horatius faces off against thousands of the enemy, and his job is just to hold on long enough for them to cut the bridge to save the town. And as the bridge starts to wobble, Spurius Lartius on his right hand and Herminius on his left hand, they retreat back across the bridge just before it falls. But Horatius cannot retreat. He has to stay long enough that they can't take the bridge. And when the bridge falls into the water, he turns and leaps fully armored into the Tiber. And they're throwing spears at him and trying to hit him, and he gets hit by a spear and crawls out into the mud on the Tiber on the far side and becomes one of the greatest of all the Roman heroes. Horatius at the Gate is a story that every kid would know in Rome, of the willingness to sacrifice yourself to save your city, your country. This is very Roman. You personally do not matter. The state matters. The city matters. The people of Rome, they matter. But you personally, you do not matter. Rome is a very collectivist, but there's a certain nobility to it anyway. There's a very collectivist culture. You should be willing to sacrifice yourself to save your country. Because you don't matter. Your country is eternal, but you're here and you're gone. There will be...
Considering the last 1,100 years, that's possibly not a bad philosophy to have.
Yeah, well, and it's very prevalent in American culture. It's very prevalent in American culture. You find it in the police, you find it in the armed forces, you find it in the Secret Service, you find it all over in sort of it's a noble thing, right? It's a noble thing to do, is to sacrifice yourself in order to save your country. You get it in, I regret that I have but one life to give for my country, right? Nathaniel Hale, who's the first spy executed because he was actually a really bad spy, but don't get me started on that. Anyway, so this is a very Roman thing, and it comes down to us in our culture as well. There is a guy who was named as Cope as the most by Cope as the most famous Roman, who has a very different philosophy. This philosophy of Jesus is, who's more important, Rome or you, the individual? Which one of you is really going to live forever? It's us. Jesus is talking about God dwells in you. The individual is more important than the state. Give Caesar whatever Caesar's is, but give God what is God's, and God dwells in you. Jesus is preaching, you need to understand this. What Jesus is preaching is treason.
That's why they killed him.
It's one of the reasons. One of the reasons the Romans were happy to kill him. They were mostly happy to kill him because the blinking Jews just were in revolt again, because they're always in revolt. But eventually they'll get really tired of it and just wipe them all out. But this is a heretical notion. First of all, it capitalizes on the totally un-Roman idea that there's only one God. Like, that's a problem. The Romans don't like that. And number two, now it's talking about the individual has eternal value. You will live forever. Your country is just here and gone. Now it flips the whole Roman ethos on its head. It's an individual ethos. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other in a community of saints that love and care for one another. That's a very non-Roman thing. And it's dangerous to the Roman idea that when you're called up for military service, it is your duty to go. Because you should sacrifice your life to preserve the state. Never mind that the state doesn't care about you. So you want to look at one of the reasons that Rome fell.
So what's the purpose of the state if not to help the individual?
Yeah, well, but see, that's a modern philosophy. That comes out of the Enlightenment. That's not Rome.
So then what did they think was the purpose of the state?
Well, I don't know, power, wealth, privilege. Of course, it protects the individuals. But the state is like itself worthwhile. Rome itself is a goal to be, it's like heaven to a Roman. There's no concept of a world where Rome is not supreme. They have no concept of that. There's a couple other stories that go along with this. So the bridge is down, and here is Lars Porsena camped out on the far side of the River Tiber. And they can see from the walls, you can see his campfires, and he's got a big army. And a couple of Romans are like, you know what? If we could just kill Lars Porsena, cut the head off the snake, then we would save Rome, right? So a guy named Lucius,
Malfoy.
I don't think so. This guy was definitely a Gryffindor.
Incredibles.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, well, where do you think she got all that stuff from? His name was Caius, actually, not Lucius, sorry. Caius is a very common name. It's like John in English. Caius Mucius is his name. He decides he's going to assassinate Lars Porsena.
Maximus.
No, not Maximus, Mucius. Yeah, it's worse, much worse. Eliza is dying.
There, I'm muted.
Caius Mucius. Caius Mucius goes to the Etruscan camp to kill Lars Porsena. But Porsena is a wise guy. He's a smart fella. He has body doubles around. Now look, remember,
Here.
you don't have any photographs of anything. Like, nobody knows what anybody actually looks like. But you figure the guy in rich clothing, that's probably the leader, right? So he goes into the camp, and there's two possible guys. They're both wearing roughly the same thing. They're both roughly the same size, and he's got to choose. So he picks one, and he kills him. But it turns out it's the wrong guy. So they arrest him, and Porsena drags him in chains up into the camp, and he says, you know, we're going to torture you and kill you unless you tell us how to get into Rome. And Caius Mucius draws himself up to his full height and says, there are hundreds of people like me coming to kill you, and you can't torture me. And he sticks his right hand into the flame, into a torch, into the flame of a torch, sticks it there and holds it there. And he's like, this is how tough we are. You can't do anything to us. We'll do worse things to ourselves. And he holds it there, and Porsena's like, stop, dude, you're insane. Leave, get out of here. And he sends him back to Rome. From that point on, he is known as Caius Mucius Scaevola. Scaevola means left-handed. In case you're thinking that that was just like a legend or whatever, Scaevola means left-handed. Every Roman kid would have been told that story in class too. They all knew that story. Here's a guy who was so tough, he would stick his hand in fire for the chance to kill an enemy king, to save the state. I am not going to tell you the story of Cloelia, but I will send you a short story that I wrote that I probably don't have rights to, so don't spread it. But I want you to read the story anyway. The story of Cloelia, which is she is the only woman ever to win an equestrian statue in Rome. An equestrian statue means you get a statue on a horse. That's like the noblest, like the highest form of statue. The more important you are, the farther up you are. If you're sitting on a horse, you're the most important guy there can be, right? So she is the only woman in Rome ever to win an equestrian statue. What she did was awesome, like crazy awesome. But there's one other guy I want to mention because we're like out of time because 2 hours just like rockets by in this class. Okay, so I know, believe it or not. Okay, so there's one other guy. Porsena's still camped there. He's starving out Rome. The Romans are like, we're dropping like flies. We're starving to death. We got to get rid of this guy. What are we going to do? And they said, well, you know what? In our wars before, we had this guy who was really a great general. And maybe we should go and get him. And they're like, well, why isn't he here? And they're like, well, because he's on his farm. He's like retired and became a farmer. So like, okay, send a delegation to tell this guy that we want him back. And so they go to his farm. And they say, look, dude, we really need your help. We're besieged. We're in trouble. And we don't know what to do, and we need you to come and save the state. And he said, okay, what's in it for me? What do I get out of this? And they're like, well, we will make you dictator. We will give you the fasces. You will have ultimate power in Rome. Just get rid of this Lars Porsena guy. And he says, okay, yeah, that's acceptable. Your terms are acceptable. So he takes the fasces, he organizes his cavalry, puts an army together, and comes around behind the Etruscans and drives them off. And he wins, sends Lars Porsena packing. But now he's a victorious general at the head of a victorious army marching back toward Rome. So what's he going to do? What do you always do what do people always do in this situation?
Gloat.
Attack Rome!
Yeah, take over. I'm going to take over. He's already got the fasces. He has the symbol of power. Plus, he's got an army who's all loyal to him. He's a victorious general. The people love him anyway. March into town and just say, I'm now king of Rome. And everybody like, hey! But would I be telling this story if that's what he did? No. No, I would
Yes.
not. No, I would not. Because everybody does that. What he does is something different. He does march back to Rome, but he tells his troops to lay down their arms. When they cross the Tiber, they lay their arms down, so they march unarmed into Rome. He carries the fasces into the Senate. He hands the fasces back to the Senate, and he says, thank you. I have achieved my aim. I'm going back to my farm. And he goes back to his farm, disbands the army, hands the power back to the Senate, and goes back to his farm.
Can I have a nose?
That's a pretty great story, isn't it? He actually does it, by some accounts, he does it twice. He has a name that you might have heard. His name is Cincinnatus. He is the noblest of all the Romans.
Right.
Where have you seen this name before or something close to the name before?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Cincinnati is, if you know your Latin, you know that that's plural. That's a plural. Cincinati means many of Cincinnatus. Can you think of someone else in history who had huge amounts of power, leading a victorious army, had won the battle to save the country, and then decided he was going to hand back the reins of power and go to his farm? Well,
But this one was.
yes, George Washington. Looking for something freaky? George Washington was a member of a society, many societies probably, but certainly at least one. The society that he founded was a founding member of, was called the League of the Cincinati.
I was going to say George Washington.
George Washington.
gotta be
George Washington was a member of a society called the League of the Cincinati, whose original member, the story that he knows, is whose story? What? Whose story? Does he know? Yes, he knows this story. Every Roman kid would have known this story too, but George Washington knew the story. He knew about Cincinnatus. And so when the time came for him to decide what to do, how did he make that decision? What did he draw on?
Cincinati.
He drew on the stories that he knew. You become the stories you know. You become the people you hang around with and the books you read. George Washington knew the story of Cincinnatus, and he considered that to be the highest form of noble civic virtue. Do your job, go home. Don't seek for power. Don't take over. Don't make yourself king. Do your job and go home. So when he's presented with an opportunity, he does his job and then he goes home. Now look, we tell a lot of old stories here, a lot of legends and myths and a lot of stuff that maybe didn't happen exactly the way that the legend says that it happened, like Romulus and Remus, and maybe it happened a little different or whatever. Or, was there actually a guy who stuck his arm in fire to scare the bloody believers out of the enemy? I don't know, maybe, maybe not. But the stories have power. You understand what I'm saying here? Stories have power. It just because it might not have happened doesn't mean it isn't true. That's a fine distinction. It's tough to make, but I make this contention. Just because it maybe didn't happen just like that doesn't mean the story's not true. This is a true story about what it means to be a great man in the service of your country. George Washington knew it, and he followed that story because he knew that story. You may think that the time is never going to come. You may think that you will never be in a situation where you've got to decide what to do against overwhelming odds to put yourself between your country and ruin or your family and ruin. You may think that it's never going to happen. You might think that, but you are wrong, because it will come to you. And the opportunity will come to decide what kind of person you actually are. And when that happens, you will draw on the stories you know. Just this last week, I had a very uncomfortable tussle with a school that I worked for until Wednesday, where they had a document that they wanted me to sign. And if I signed that document, then they would pay me a bunch of money and we would go our separate ways and everything would be fine. But the document wasn't true. There were things in the document that weren't true. My family needs the money. We're not rich people. My daughter just got married. That was expensive. Y'all are expensive, ladies. Gentlemen, you're expensive too, but mostly for destroying things. My daughter's never wrecked my car. That was just as expensive as a wedding. Anyway, what I mean to say is I thought about it a lot and I took a lot of counsel. But when it came down to time to decide what to do, to actually whether the like 0 hour I got to sign or I got to not sign. And if I don't sign, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to have money. I know I'm going to lose my job. I know they're going to fire me. What am I going to do? I remembered a story that I knew. I remember the story of Martin Luther and how Martin Luther was called before a tribunal and said, here's a document we want you to sign repudiating all the stuff that you said. And Martin Luther said, I can't do that because I've told the truth. I won't sign. And he thought he might end up dead for that. He didn't, but that was a possibility. But he made a speech and he said, here I stand, I can do no other. So when they asked me what I was going to do, I said, here I stand, I can do no other. I can't sign your document. So I didn't sign it.
Did you actually say those words? I'm so proud of you, Mr. C.
They sent me an email and said, you have until 3, and I almost sent back nuts, which is an even shorter and very laconic phrase that actually comes from World War II, and we will learn about that next year. One of my very favorite short answers to a demand that somebody do something that they don't want to do that. Thank you. That's not why I told you that, okay? But I didn't tell you that so you could think I was awesome. I didn't sign the document. I still don't know what's going to happen. There's all kinds of craziness going on and lawyers arguing with each other, and I don't know. But all I know is I can't sign a document. It's not true. I can't sign it. Because my heroes wouldn't sign that document. Joan of Arc would not have signed that. She would not have signed it. She would rather be burnt at the stake than sign that. These are my heroes. These are the stories I know. How can I not live up to them? That's why I tell you these stories. That's why we tell each other these stories. That's why we talk about Antigone, who would rather go to her death than leave her brother unburied. That's why we tell these stories, is so that the history is great, but you can look crap up. It's easy. But you can't ask Google, should I sign this document? You can't ask Google, should I tell the truth even though it might get me arrested? Should I tell the truth even though it will hurt people that are dear to me? Should I stand firm in what I believe even though people are telling me it's false and all kinds of people are running around saying it's not true and it's dangerous and you're hurting the world and why are you behaving like this? Should I tell the truth anyway? Should I stick to my guns? Well, yes, you should. Yes, you should. And when you get there, and you will get there, because God will test you, I want you to have a story that you know and somebody that you want to be like and say, I won't do that because then I would not be Horatius. But I want to be Horatius. I want to be Cloelia. I want to be Martin Luther. I want to be Joan of Arc. I know these stories, and the reason that I care about these stories is because these people were who I want to be. And when I have a chance to be like that, I'm going to take it. And that's what I hope you will do. That's why this class exists. All right. That's it. That's class is over. Okay, now 2 weeks. I'm going to send you guys an email. There is reading you need to do. Otherwise, you will not be able to participate in this class effectively. Rumors are flying that there will be some sort of reprise of the Caesar and the Pirates choose your own adventure complete madness that cost one of my favorite people in the world her arm the last time I taught this class. Those rumors are true. There will be
Oh, that's what you meant by bring your own daggers.
There will be daggers. There will be madness, craziness, insanity of various kinds. There will be dice rolling. There will be an opportunity to decide whether you would like to insult someone or kiss up to them. There will be chances to decide whether you're going to run or fight. There are going to be chances. Oh my gosh, this class defies all possible description. And then there will be one more. After that, I'm only coming back one more time after that. And that is going to be the single most epic class that there's ever been, even better than the next one we're going to have, although that doesn't seem like possible, and even better than the one we just had, which also does not seem possible because that was probably the greatest class I ever taught. So anyway, what's coming up, I can't even tell you. I cannot even describe to you the awesomeness that is about to ensue. So you'll just have to be there to see it. But do the work beforehand, because if you do that, then it will matter a lot more. Then the whole, what we do will actually make a difference to you, in addition to being ridiculously entertaining. But it will be ridiculously entertaining either way. But you'll have a better time if you've done the work. Okay? Sorry, McKenna. When I get really intense, I gotta get right up to you know what I'm talking about. Okay, that's how you know it's intense time. Okay. Questions for me? Comments? Things you want me to know? Wow.
You sound like Hoyd when you're talking about your stories. It's amazing.
Who's? I don't
know Hoyd from Cosmere Wit in Way of Kings. Yeah. You sound like him.
Do I really? Wow, that's cool.
Especially in Oathbringer, like that one scene in Oathbringer where he's talking to Shallan.
I haven't read Oathbringer yet.
What?
No. I did. It's okay. It's please, just a second. Okay. I'm reading a lot of Roman stuff. I've got to read this because otherwise I can't teach you. But then I'm reading. But Oathbringer is like, I have it. I have the thing. But I was going to read Oathbringer and I got it out to read it. And then there's a preface, and the preface says, if you haven't read, what was the thing? The thing about the girl who's a thief. She's sliding or whatever.
Yeah. That other the short novella.
Yeah. Right. And he says you might want to read that. That takes place in between the last one and this one. So I'm like, I haven't read that, so I had to go back and read that. So I went back and I read that, and then when I finished reading that, now I finished reading that, so now I can read Oathbringer.
Oh, that one's so funny.
Forgive me. Please forgive me. I will have read Oathbringer.
There's a scene where Wit and Shallan go all out in this giant
I will read it. I will have read it by the time I get up there, and then we can talk about it. I promise.
Mr. C?
Wow.
When are you coming?
My mom wants you to call her after the class. Yeah.
Message received.
When are you coming?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
I keep saying the Ides of March, and I forget that you guys do not know when the Ides of March is. The Ides of March is the 15th. Beware of the Ides of March, my son. The jaws that bite, the claws that cat. No, that's the Jabberwock. That's different. Oh! I forgot. 1 second.
You are so ill.
And finished. I have finished. On the elegant. Eggs and baskets. Cool. Clean up the third.
You okay over there?
Okay, no, next time. I'll do it next time. I was like, I'll do it next time. Sorry. Okay. Never mind. Okay, we're done.
It's kind of bad that you and him take over like the whole conversation and nobody else gets really.
Nobody else says anything anyway. Oh, I'm not muted. I thought it was.
You're not muted. No, that's true. You don't take over the whole conversation, except that you sometimes do, but that's okay. I don't mind. I would tell you to stop if I didn't want you to do it. All right, my people.
Well, in that case.
Mwah. Love you to bits. See you in a couple weeks. 2
Bye.
weeks. 2 weeks from today, I'll be up there. Bye. Copeland.
Bye.
Hi, Copeland's mama. Bye, Kenna. Again, great class.